Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere that doesn't quite exist and yet you've been there before. You might have passed through it in a half-forgotten dream or glimpsed it while zoning out during a long train ride. It's a city where no one arrives and no one ever leaves. You just happen to be there. And the strangest part, you're not even surprised. This place doesn't have a name in any known language. It has one of those names you can only feel in your molars when the air shifts right before a storm. There's no welcome sign, no population count, just a rusted gate swinging gently on its hinges, open like it's been waiting for you, or more accurately, like it never closed at all. You definitely wouldn't survive here, not in the usual sense, but don't worry, that's part of the charm. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, what time is it where you are and where in the world are you listening from? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step over the threshold of the gate. You don't remember walking there, but you're certain you did. The ground beneath your feet feels like it was poured and polished sometime before the invention of memory foam. Solid, cool, a little too clean. You notice something odd right away. There's no signage pointing you anywhere. No map kiosk, no grumpy guy in a booth handing out tourist pamphlets printed with stock photos and suspiciously happy families. Instead, you're surrounded by buildings that seem to lean in ever so slightly, as if they're trying to hear your thoughts, or maybe whisper something to each other about you. Most of them are built in architectural styles that shouldn't coexist. Victorian bay windows beside brutalist concrete slabs beside what looks like a strip mall from the 80s. Everything is tinted in that golden hour light, frozen at 5:43 p.m. A breeze picks up, not cold but aware of its own direction. You smell dust, iron, something faintly citrus like the memory of an orange that was peeled too far from here to matter. There's a plaque next to the gate, etched in bronze but badly weathered. You lean in. It reads, "Here we forget the road in and ignore the road out." That makes sense, sort of. You wander forward, your shoes echoing louder than expected. There's no one else on the street, but you don't feel alone. More like you've arrived just after the city's shifted itself into a different shape, like a stage set between scenes. There are tire tracks in the dust, a coffee cup still, steaming on a bench. A dog leash wrapped around a street lamp, but no dog. The buildings grow taller as you move in. You pass a barber shop, classic red and white poles spinning lazily even though there's no power. You peek inside. The chairs are empty, clippers rest on the counter. There's a faint scent of talc powder and old aftershave, but not a soul in sight. On the mirror, someone's written in lipstick, "Be back in 5." They never were. But across from that shop, a wall-sized map is painted in cracked acrylic. It shows the layout of the city, only instead of districts or landmarks, it lists emotions. Streets named things like Regret Boulevard and Hopeful Loop. You are currently standing on Memory Lane, obviously, because of course you are. A fine little historical moment bubbles up in your head. Did you know the ancient Roman city of Ostia Antica once had a road that supposedly looped back into itself? Travelers swore they walked for days without ever reaching the outskirts. Some historians still argue whether it was a trick of geography or just bad cartography mixed with too much wine. Here, though, it's different. You're not walking in circles. You're walking inwards. And as you stroll deeper, something odd happens. You start to forget what direction you came from. You know the gate's still behind you, but it's as if your brain has quietly filed that memory under unimportant and locked the drawer. The wind whispers again, this time carrying a tune. You can't quite place the melody, but it feels like it was playing the last time you felt safe, or the last time you lied and said you were okay. Suddenly, you're back at the gate. No, you're at a gate. It looks exactly the same, but there's no plaque, just a small brass bell hanging from a frayed string. You reach out and tug it. The chime sounds like it's coming from underwater, and then footsteps behind you. You spin around. Nothing. A chill prickles your spine. Not fear, not quite. More like the way your skin feels when a historical fact doesn't sit right in your head. Like this one. In 1587, the Roanoke colony vanished without a trace. All that was left behind was the word Croatoan carved into a tree. Some believe it was a clue. Others think it was just graffiti. Historians still debate it, of course, but none of them agree on where the colony actually went. Maybe here, because the city's full of echoes like that. Places where something used to be, but isn't anymore. And you? You're starting to feel like one of them. Just another mystery that slipped in quietly and hasn't figured out how to leave. You take a few hesitant steps away from the gate again and try to get your bearings. But the city isn't interested in giving you directions. There are street signs, sure, but they don't exactly help. One arrow points to somewhere else. Another reads simply still here, and one in peeling gold paint declares eventually. You choose eventually because why not? The pavement is unusually clean, too clean. Not a single cigarette butt, gum stain, or scribbled chalk game in sight. It's the kind of spotless that makes you feel like you're walking through a memory rather than a real place. As if the whole street was scrubbed clean by time itself, like it wanted to forget what had ever happened here. And then you see it. The first real sign of life. A small metal stand, painted a bright, ridiculous shade of turquoise, sitting on the corner like it's waiting for a parade that's centuries late. You approach and realize it's one of those old public information kiosks, the kind that usually displays maps or posters for jazz festivals that were cancelled years ago. But this one? It's different. It holds a single sheet of laminated paper, curling slightly at the corners. The ink is faded but still legible. All roads in this city loop, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Please enjoy your walk. You don't know whether to feel comforted or insulted. There's a soft sound behind you, a hum. You turn and for a second you swear you see the lights of a tram car approaching down the street. It's old-fashioned, with curved metal sides and frosted glass windows. But just before it turns the corner, it vanishes. No screeching brakes, no puff of exhaust, just gone. You sigh, or maybe laugh. They sound similar here. You keep walking, and that's when you reach the signpost that points in every direction. It's taller than it needs to be, with arrows jutting out like a pinwheel mid-spin. The destinations are things like past mistakes, next Tuesday, and the corner of your eye. You pick one at random, the corner of your eye. It leads you down a cobbled alleyway, barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side, though that isn't really a problem since it's just you. You pass faded murals along the bricks, children playing with shadows, cats with too many eyes, and a man made entirely of keys. It all feels like someone tried to recreate nostalgia using second-hand dreams. The alley opens up into a small square. In the center, a barber shop, the one from before. Only now it's different. The pole outside is spinning faster, the door slightly ajar. You glance inside again, expecting it to be empty. It isn't. There's someone sitting in the barber's chair facing the mirror. You can't see their face. You can only see the back of their head. Dark hair, a little messy, like they've just woken up from a nap that lasted decades. The barber is missing, of course, but the tools are laid out, freshly cleaned. A warm towel steams on the counter, and for some reason your hands feel damp with anticipation. You step inside. The bell doesn't ring. The person in the chair doesn't turn around. But they speak. Not with their voice, no, with yours. You look tired, they say, but then you always do. Your reflection doesn't appear in the mirror, just theirs. Still facing forward. Still not moving. You back away. Carefully. Politely. Outside, the air feels colder. The buildings look older. And the sky? The sky has forgotten how to be blue. You pass a small newsstand that's still stocked like it's 1962. Headlines include, "Moon landing delayed again," "Local man sues gravity," and "Population of nowhere holds steady at 1." You don't laugh. Not this time, because something about this city, this nowhere, starts to feel suspiciously familiar. You get the distinct impression that everyone who ends up here once thought they were just passing through. And that's when you remember. In 1943, during the height of World War II, the British government printed thousands of fake street maps to confuse enemy paratroopers. Entire neighborhoods were invented on paper, with roads that never existed. Some say those blueprints were so convincing, that a few agents wandered through them long after the war ended, believing they'd simply missed the turn. Historians still argue whether the maps were a tactical success or a moral failure. But the story remains. If you give someone a fake city long enough, they'll start to believe it's real. And maybe that's what happened here. Maybe you're walking through someone else's version of a city, stitched together from their unfinished thoughts, broken memories, and dreams they stopped chasing when life got too loud. Or maybe this is your map, and you've been following it your whole life without realizing. Up ahead you see another gate, but this one is shut. A handwritten sign hangs from its latch. You'll know when it's time. You pause, then turn back, down the street, and continue walking. Because in a city with no arrivals and no departures, there's nothing else to do except stay. The streets start to narrow again. The buildings lean closer, their windows squinting suspiciously like they're trying to judge your intentions. You wonder if the architecture here is slowly rearranging itself behind your back, editing your path like an overzealous film director who doesn't trust the actors to improvise. You follow a curve in the road, and suddenly you're standing in front of a train station, or more accurately, the idea of a train station. It's grand, ornate, Victorian ironwork with soaring arches, soot-streaked bricks, and a roof of warped glass panels that catch what little light filters through the amber sky. The faded sign above the entrance reads, "Terminal Station, arrivals suspended until further notice." Below it, someone has scrawled in red marker, "It's always further notice." You step inside. The echo hits you like a polite slap. Your own footsteps become exaggerated, like you're the last living sound in the room. Dust hangs in the air, suspended in golden beams of fake sunlight, as if waiting for an audience to return. To your left, a ticket booth manned by nothing. Just a rusted swivel chair, turning ever so slightly as if someone stood up just before you walked in. To your right, the departures board. One of those old-timey flipboards with clacking tiles. Only it doesn't list destinations. It lists emotions. Train 12A, disappointment. Delayed train 4C, longing, platform 2. Train 7B, relief. Cancelled. Train 9E, memory, arrived yesterday. Train 5D, sleep. Currently. Boarding, you hesitate. Platform 5 is straight ahead. You don't go there. Not yet. Instead, you drift toward a row of wooden benches, worn smooth by the ghosts of other passengers. There's a newspaper folded neatly on one of them. You pick it up. No headlines. Just a single line repeated across every page. "You are here. You are here. You are here." It doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like being pinned to the map with no legend. That's when you hear it. A low mechanical hum, rhythmic, familiar. The train is coming. You rush to the platform. Heart doing that annoying stutter jump it does when you think you might be late, even though you know time doesn't work right here. And there it is. A sleek black train glides into the station without screeching, without slowing. It simply appears at the platform like it was always meant to be there and just politely waited for you to notice. The doors open, inside no passengers, no driver. But each seat has a nameplate. Not your name, not anyone's name. Just words like almost, never, could have, and didn't. You don't get on not because you're scared, but because you understand now. These trains don't take you anywhere. They show you where you could have gone. You think back to something strange, a tiny historical footnote tucked deep inside a textbook you once used as a pillow in college. In 1917, during the Russian Revolution, a train carrying Tsar Nicholas, Tos and his family circled for days, unable to find a safe destination. Each station they arrived at had already fallen. Each path forward was another dead end. Some say the train never stopped. That somewhere, it's still riding endless rails through snow and shadow, full of people who can't disembark. Historians still debate the details. The train's route, its true purpose. But one theory haunts the margins, that it was never a train at all. Just a metaphor for power unwilling to yield and the denial of endings. You step back from the platform and notice something curious. There's a door on the far wall of the station labeled Lost Luggage. You open it. Inside, shelves. Upon shelves of suitcases, old battered, neatly tagged. You pick one at random, it hums slightly in your hand. You open it, inside, a photo of someone you don't remember taking, a postcard from a city you've never visited, a key, a receipt from a diner that doesn't exist anymore, and a note. In handwriting that looks suspiciously like yours. You said you'd come back. So where have you been? You close the case and suddenly it doesn't matter that the trains don't go anywhere, because you're already where you're supposed to be. Outside the station, the wind picks up again. It brings with it the faint sound of piano music, soft, broken, the kind of song someone plays when they're trying to remember how it goes. The melody lingers in your chest. You hum it without realizing. You walk away from the terminal and for the first time you don't look back, because there's nothing behind you that's more real than what's ahead. And whatever this city is, whatever it was, you're starting to understand. It doesn't need arrivals or departures, just someone willing to stay. The music leads you, not in the way a melody usually guides a person, like pulling your memories gently by the collar, but in the way a lighthouse might lure ships too close to the rocks. Still, your feet move. The bricks beneath you change color, slightly with every block, reddish, then mossy green, then a shade of blue-gray that reminds you of twilight during a power outage. You find the source of the music. It's a cafe. Of course it is. The awning is striped, hand-painted, weather-beaten like it's survived a dozen summers and a few especially dramatic winters. The name of the place is written in elegant cursive on frosted glass. The Echo Room, all dialogue improvised. You open the door, and immediately the sound of a bell overhead, more of a theatrical chime really, announces your entrance like the opening cue of a play. Inside, the room is full of empty chairs, soft armchairs and booths with worn velvet, cushions. One table is set with coffee, steam still curling upward like someone invisible has just stirred their spoon. There's a stage in the corner, low platform, closed curtain. A vintage microphone stands front and center, waiting patiently like a butler who doesn't speak unless addressed directly. You sit. The menu appears on your table without a server. It offers things like nostalgia au lait, deja brew, unspoken feelings, lightly toasted. You order none of it. Or maybe you order all of it. Time flickers here. So do intentions. From somewhere behind the curtain, the piano resumes. A figure steps onto the stage. They look like someone you knew in college, or maybe someone you passed on the street once. Their face keeps changing ever so slightly, like a shuffled deck trying to decide which card to show you. They speak, not in soliloquy, but in that odd, too precise rhythm actors use when they know someone's watching, which of course you are. Do you remember the moment, they say, when you realized you had become someone else's background character? The lights dim. A second figure enters from the side, this one carrying a clipboard wearing a bowler hat. They begin to recite a list of names you don't recognize, until the fifth one. That's yours. You're listed as person who wandered, in but never really left. There's polite applause, you don't know why, but you stand and bow. This entire city is a performance. You get that now, not in the cheap, flashy sense, no smoke machines or laugh tracks, but in the way life itself often feels, slightly off script, like you were handed the wrong lines and decided to improvise anyway. You glance up at the chandelier above. It's not swaying, and yet the shadows on the walls are moving like they're reacting to wind that doesn't exist. The piano picks up tempo. You think about a peculiar historical event, the Dada movement, born in Zurich in 1916 during the madness of World War I. Artists, poets and thinkers gathered in a little cafe called Cabaret Voltaire and started staging absurd, nonsensical performances. They were tired of logic. Logic, after all, had led to war, so they gave the world nonsense. They shouted poetry backward, wore hats made of newspapers, danced while reciting grocery lists, and it made people feel something real, precisely because it wasn't trying to make sense. That cafe became legend. This one? It's trying, not to shock, not to entertain, just to echo. Because when no one arrives and no one leaves, all that remains are reflections. Back at your table, the coffee is still warm. You take a sip. It tastes like a memory that doesn't belong to you, thick with feeling, faintly familiar, but impossible to place. like hearing a lullaby in a language you never learned. On the wall behind the bar, there's a chalkboard scrawled with questions. What's the story you've never told? When did you first disappear? If no one saw you leave, did you ever really go? You finish your coffee, the curtain closes again, no bows, no endings. Just a low rumble, like the city clearing its throat before the next scene. You step outside. The door closes with a sound like punctuation, maybe a comma, maybe a semicolon. It doesn't feel like a full stop. The street outside is empty once, more but warmer somehow. Like applause has soaked into the bricks. And as you walk away, you realize something. You're not in a city at all. You're in a memory that someone gave up trying to remember, and it's doing its best to keep itself from fading. You wander farther, guided now not by signs or sounds or even curiosity, but by that strange pull in your chest that only exists when you're halfway between lost and found. The street twists, then splits into three forks. One path is paved with cobblestone, the second with broken typewriter keys, and the third with geezer carpet. Beige, faintly floral, the kind you'd find in a hotel hallway where time forgot to check out. You choose the carpet, because of course you do. It leads you to a library. No sign, no librarian, just a massive set of stone doors slightly ajar, like someone forgot to lock them centuries ago. You push inside and the smell of old paper wraps around you immediately. Warm, musty, a little electric. Like the breath of a thunderstorm caught between the pages of a book. The ceilings stretch so high they vanish into mist. The shelves curve in spirals and loops, more like the structure of DNA than a public library. There are ladders, yes, but they move on their own. Shelves reorganize themselves when you're not looking. You hear them, soft creaks, whispers of wood, the occasional thump of a book falling. All being dropped. You reach out to pull a book at random. It has no title. Inside, blank pages, dozens, hundreds. But as you flip, words begin to appear, not printed, handwritten, and not just any handwriting. Yours. You blink. The ink moves, reshaping itself into paragraphs you don't remember writing, but feel eerily familiar. Snippets of conversations you never finished. Descriptions of places you've only visited in dreams. The outline of an apology you meant to say aloud. This is a library of unfinished thoughts, and it's full. You walk between the stacks, fingers grazing the spines. Some of them vibrate almost imperceptibly, like they're holding their breath. You pass an aisle labeled "What You Almost Said." Another marked "Dreams That Died Politely." A third simply reads, "Later." It's quiet, but not empty. You spot something moving just around the corner. Another visitor, a librarian, a memory you follow. But as you turn the corner, the movement is gone. In its place is a table. On it, a single open book, and beside it a candle that never burns down. The book is titled "The History of the Forgotten." You read a random entry. In the year 213 BCE, Emperor Qin Shi Huang ordered the burning of hundreds of philosophical texts and buried alive scholars who resisted. Some say it was an act of control. Others claim it was fear that too many stories would lead to too many futures. Modern historians still debate the extent of the loss, but in this place, where nothing truly leaves, some believe those lost stories still linger, waiting to be remembered. You close the book gently. It sighs. As you move deeper into the library, you pass a row of card catalogues. Each drawer labeled not with topics, but with emotions. Guilt, hesitation, tenderness, misplaced laughter. That came too late. You open one. Inside, a single note typed on translucent paper. You were loved more than you knew, but timing is cruel. It folds itself as you read it and drifts back into the drawer. You back away slowly, head spinning. Not from fear, but from too many truths stacked in too little space. And then you see the exit. It's small, humble. Just a door tucked between two enormous encyclopedias of silence. You open it and step out, not into a street, but into a courtyard bathed in pale light. Somewhere between moonrise and memory. At the center is a sculpture, an open book made of stone, pages fluttering despite the absence of wind. Etched into the base are the words, "We are stories unfinished. That is why we endure." You sit by, the sculpture. You don't feel alone here, because this part of the city doesn't ask for arrival or departure. It just asks you to remember. You rise from the courtyard bench slowly, legs heavy with the weight of forgotten thoughts and too much stillness. The library looms behind you, its doors now gently closed, not slammed, not locked, just politely final, like the end of a chapter you're not allowed to reread. Ahead, a narrow path lined with flickering lanterns leads uphill. You follow it instinctively. The air here smells different, like iron and lemon and static, like rain that hasn't decided whether to fall. The top of the hill stands a tower, thin and elegant, like a brushstroke on the skyline. A spiraling staircase winds up its side, open to the sky, the kind of design that makes no architectural sense and every emotional one. You climb, slowly, one foot, then the other. The city begins to shrink beneath you. Rooftops tilt like puzzle pieces you never quite assembled. From here, you notice how the blocks form a pattern, not a grid, but a glyph. As if the entire city were a single, sprawling character in an alphabet no one speaks anymore. Halfway up, you pass a small window, you pause. Inside the room is a telescope, dusty, brass, pointed straight at a wall. You chuckle, you think of Galileo, of how he spent nights staring at Jupiter's moons while the rest of Europe argued about theology. He saw motion where others demanded stillness, and they didn't like that. Historians still argue whether Galileo was silenced for his science or his stubbornness. But what no one debates is this. Once you've seen that the heavens move, you can never unsee it. You peer through the telescope. The wall is blank, then not blank. It begins to shimmer, faintly at first, then with purpose. You see yourself. Not as you are, but as you almost became. The version of you who took the other job, who stayed, who left, who spoke, who loved without hesitation. Each image flickers for a moment, then vanishes like static clearing. You keep climbing. At the top of the tower, you find the observation room. There's no equipment. No dials or gauges, just windows on all sides, and in the center a chair. It's old, wood worn smooth. It faces nothing in particular. Or maybe it faces everything. You sit. Silence folds itself around you, heavy but gentle. Then, from the distance, their voice, it's not loud, not urgent, just persistent. Like a thought you forgot to finish thinking, it says, "You've been here before. Not in body perhaps, but in need. This city doesn't want your name, it wants your weight, the pieces you carry that no one else sees." You don't reply. You don't need to, because in that moment you realize something. This tower isn't for watching the city. It's for being seen by it, a spotlight in reverse. You let the stillness settle in your bones, and then the lights in the city below begin to flicker. Not on or off, but between. Windows blink like eyes in a slow, drowsy dream. Street lamps hum. The tram glides silently along tracks it shouldn't remember. And somewhere far below, the echo of a piano starts again. You feel something uncoil in your chest. Not relief. Not quite peace. Permission. Permission to not explain yourself. Permission to not escape. Permission to be unfinished. You think of a strange footnote from the 1960s, one of those historical quirks you only stumble across at 2 a.m. on a conspiracy blog or deep in the appendix of a forgotten book. In East Germany, it said that there was once a town built purely for spies, every building a facade, every resident a watcher. The entire town was a lie in service of truth. No official records. Confirm it, but someone somewhere remembers being there. And in this city, memories don't vanish. They just put on different clothes and walk new streets. You rise from the chair. The tower doesn't shudder, doesn't crumble. It simply breathes with you, and as you descend, you feel it. The city is learning you, not recording you, not cataloging, just learning, like a living language picking up a new syllable, and you've become fluent in standing still. The descent from the tower is quiet but not silent. Somewhere below you hear faint laughter, soft and hollow, like it bounced off the walls too many times before reaching your ears. It doesn't sound malicious, more like the city just remembered. Something mildly amusing from a past life. You reach the base and step back onto the street, which now seems a bit more alert than before. Street lamps blink at irregular intervals. Window shutters creak open, then closed again. It's as if the city's blinking. Groggy maybe, but awake. Up ahead you see a garden gate. It's ornate, wrought iron twisted into the shape of vines and question marks. The path beyond it is lined with flowers, or at least things that want to be flowers. Some bloom, some hover in a state of almost. Others look like sketches, half drawn by a distracted artist. You push the gate open. It sighs, one of those long theatrical sighs, like an actor waiting for their cue that never came. The garden is large, too large to fit between the buildings you just passed. It defies spatial logic the way dream geography often does. Paths loop around themselves, stone benches face invisible views. Fountains gurgle without water. You sit on one of the benches beneath a tree that has no leaves, just folded paper cranes where foliage should be. And then you notice something strange. The flowers aren't blooming, not just some of them. None of them. Their buds are frozen in time just before they open, suspended in permanent hesitation. You touch one gently. It hums, low and warm, like a distant cello note. You pull your hand back, and for a moment it seems like it might bloom, but it doesn't. It's waiting, and you remember a story. In the days after the bombing of Hiroshima, survivors reported that the first thing to return to life were the gi, plants. Specifically the oleander, a flower that somehow bloomed in the soil where the world had ended. Historians call it a symbol of resilience. Botanists call it a marvel of biology. But the survivors, they called it an answer. You wonder what these flowers are waiting for. A season, a signal, or someone who finally asks the right question. You wander deeper into the garden and find a sundial, but the sundial doesn't cast a shadow. Instead, its face reads, "Time blooms for no one. Let that be your freedom." You sit beside it, not to wait, just to be. Birdsong echoes overhead, but you never spot the birds. Leaves rustle even though the trees don't move. There's an ache in the air, the kind that usually accompanies the end of something important. That's when you see the gardener, old, ageless, covered in dust and pollen. Their hands are stained with soil the color of smoke. They carry a watering can, but it's empty. Their expression is serene, tired. They don't speak, but they nod at you, then gesture toward a patch of dirt near your feet. There's nothing planted there, but you feel unmistakably that something once was. You kneel. The dirt is warm. Not dry, not dead, just sun waiting. You dig gently, half expecting to find a root, a bulb, a seed. Instead, you find a small piece of paper, folded, stained at the corners. You open it. It's a page torn from a journal. A single line written in handwriting you recognize from somewhere inside yourself. "I wasn't ready to bloom, but I grew anyway." The paper crumbles as you read it. But the ground beneath your knees feels different now. Lighter, less expectant. Like it doesn't need you to plant anything, just to remember that growth doesn't always look like flowers. You stand. The gardener has vanished. Only the echo of their footsteps remains, fading gently into the soft hush of the garden. You exit through the gate. Behind you, one of the paper crane trees unfolds a single crane, which flutters once, then settles again, and somewhere deep in the soil something shifts. Because maybe the point was never to see something bloom. Maybe the point was to sit with something that chose to stay closed. You leave the garden with soil still clinging to your fingers, like the city wants to remind you where you've been. The streets feel emptier now, not in a lonely way, but in that quiet hush that happens after a good story ends and everyone's just sitting with it, not quite ready to speak. You wander until you find a building that looks like it was meant to be important. Tall columns, heavy wooden doors, a brass plaque so polished it's nearly blinding. But the name etched into the metal has been scratched out, violently, like it tried too hard to be remembered and the city objected. You push open the door and step into a grand hall. High ceilings, marble floors, rows of chairs facing a raised platform with a long table. It's a town hall, or was. You walk past the rows. The chairs are dusty, but each one has a name tag on it. Not people's names, roles. Witness, apologist, historian, someone who knew better. One who stayed silent. And at the head of the long table, a single seat, larger, isolated. Its nameplate reads, "No one in particular. You sit in it. It's not comfortable. It was never meant to be." You stare at the empty hall and it begins to feel like a memory of a trial that never happened. No judges, no verdict, just echoes waiting for someone to make a sound. And that's when you see the documents on the table. Not paper, stone slabs carved with rules, edits, crossed out declarations. One reads, "All citizens must remember why they stayed." Another, "Grief must be signed in triplicate." Another, "Questions about departure are considered bad taste." And beneath them all, etched into the wood of the table itself, "We didn't plan to become a city, we just never left." You lean back. The chair creaks like it's being honest for the first time in years. And you think about empires. Did you? Know that in the final decades of the Ottoman Empire, entire cities functioned without central leadership. Decisions made through endless councils, rewrites, gentle coups that never made the history books. One town is said to have conducted the same meeting for 37 years, never resolving the issue, only updating the minutes. Some historians call it chaos. Others, endurance. You look around this room and think maybe both were right, because this hall isn't abandoned, it's paused, a bureaucracy of memory, a legislative body of almosts and what-ifs. You rise, the chair doesn't object, and as you walk out, you notice something scratched into the doorframe on your way out. This city governs nothing, and that's how we kept everything. Back outside, the sky has shifted again. It's not night, not day. It's that exact hue of blue-gray that only appears in old photographs or memory sequences in black and white movies. The city feels paused, mid-breath, like it's waiting for the next line of dialogue that hasn't been written yet. You keep walking. At a corner, you pass a woman made of paper. She nods at you, you nod back. She begins to fold herself. First her arms, then her legs, then her face, until she's just a single sheet drifting in the wind, disappearing into a crack in the sidewalk. You don't chase her. You turn another corner and find yourself in a small alley. Narrow, barely wide enough to breathe in. The walls here are covered in posters, layers upon layers. Concert announcements, political campaigns, lost pet notices. They flake like skin when you brush them. And behind them, on the brick beneath, you spot it. A mural, faded, cracked, but there. A depiction of a train station, empty tracks, a waiting bench. A person with no face sitting quietly, holding a suitcase made of mirrors. You don't know what it means. Or maybe you do. You step back, and the mural blinks. Just once. You walk away slowly, and the city doesn't stop you, it never does. But as you round the last corner of the alley, you hear someone whisper, "The council is still in session and your chair is still warm." You don't respond, because you've already voted, with your footsteps, and you're choosing to keep walking. You walk for what feels like hours, though you know better than to check the time. The city has no clocks, or rather, the ones you pass are always stuck. 2:17, 4:44, 12, Friday, blinking endlessly like a forgotten microwave. None of them agree, but all of them are certain. Eventually, the road leads you to something unexpected, a carnival, or what's left of one. The entrance is a rusted archway of flickering bulbs, spelling out the name, the Forever Fair. Some of the bulbs are missing. Some are still buzzing with life like they don't know the party's over. You step through the gate. It doesn't creak. It sighs. The fairground stretches before you in eerie stillness. Stalls with faded prizes. Game booths with signs like, "Guess who you could have been," and "Win a memory that wasn't yours." The carousel is still turning, slowly, reluctantly, like it wants to stop but forgot how. The horses are strange. Some are made of glass. Some are made of typewriters. One is shaped like a fish with wings. Another has a key sticking out of its back, wound so tight you can hear it ticking. You approach but don't mount any of them. Instead, you find a bench, nearby, and sit. Watch. Listen. The calliope music is warped and underwater. Notes arrive out of order, like someone shuffled the sheet music in a dream. The melody is just familiar enough to hurt. You feel the air shift beside you. Someone sits. Down, you don't turn your head, but you know them not from your life, but from this place, like the memory of someone else's déjà vu. They speak first. Did you win anything? You smile, just a little. I think the game was rigged. They nod. That's the point. You don't come here to win. You come here to remember what losing felt like. You glance over. Their faces blurred, not hidden, just undecided. A watercolor mid-stroke. They lean forward, elbows on knees. Most people get off the carousel eventually, but not everyone walks away from it. You ask, what happens if you stay on? They shrug. You forget there was anything else. A beat of silence passes between you, one of those silences where the universe leans in to hear if you'll fill it. Then you both rise at the same time, like choreography. They vanish into the shadows behind the ring toss booth. You keep walking. You pass the funhouse. Its mirrors don't show you, they show everyone else, people you've wronged, people who've wronged you, versions of yourself too ridiculous or too honest to exist outside glass. You nod to them. Some nod back. One rolls their eyes. Fair enough. You walk by the Ferris wheel next. Enormous. Still turning. But the cars don't hold people. They hold moments. You see, a birthday party you forgot you cried through. The first lie you told and believed. The time you almost said what you meant but smiled instead. Each moment circling upward, then disappearing into the night sky like they're being offered to something above. You reach the exit. No one stops you. But just before you step out, you see a sign nailed crookedly to the last booth. We're always open for those who still carry tokens. You check your pocket and yes, there it is. A single token, cool metal, slightly warm in the middle, stamped with the word maybe. You leave it on the counter and walk into the dark. Behind you, the carousel pauses for the first time. Not broken, just resting. You glance back once, and for a split second all the lights on the archway flicker into harmony. The forever fair shines like it never ended, then fades again. You keep walking, and the city, as always, keeps not stopping. You walk until the glow of the carnival fades, until the laughter and music dissolve into that peculiar hush this city wears like a second skin. The buildings thin out. The air grows heavier, as if the sky is pressing down just a little harder. Here, nudging you toward reflection, toward stillness. And then you find it, a building with no walls, just a frame, beams of dark wood, forming the rough outline of a house or maybe a chapel or maybe something else entirely. No roof, no doors, just the skeleton of shelter. At the center stands a bed, simple, white sheets, one pillow, no wrinkles, but you know it's been used, often. You step inside, though there's no real inside to speak of. The city surrounds you on all sides, but here something feels softer, muffled, sacred. You sit on the edge of the bed. There's a small table next to it. On it, a notebook and a pen. You open it. Only one page has been written on. The handwriting is looping and unsure, like someone was learning to say something hard. It reads, "This city doesn't need doors because no one is trying to leave. They're just trying to understand why they're still here." You turn the page blank. The pen feels warm when you pick it up. You hesitate, then write, "I don't know what I'm looking for, but I recognize everything I find." You close the notebook. It hums softly, like approval. The wind picks up, rustling the air in a way that sounds like breathing, or maybe sighing. The beams of the structure groan gently, like bones remembering what they used to carry. You lie back on the bed. The sky above is a deep navy now, scattered with stars that flicker just a little offbeat, like they're blinking in code. You stare upward. Something shifts, and then beside you the bed dips. Someone else is lying there, not touching, not intruding, just present. You turn your head, but their face is turned away from you. Still, you speak. "Do you remember how we got here?" They reply, "Does it matter?" A pause, then, "You stayed, that's all the city ever asked." You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel it. The weight of everything you've carried easing off like a coat that's finally been hung up. Not discarded, just rested. You think about an obscure piece of Cold War history, how during the 1960s, the US government built a series of continuity bunkers for high-ranking officials. These bunkers had bedrooms, kitchens, even theaters. They were designed not just to protect bodies, but to preserve narratives. The illusion that things could continue even when everything outside had ended. But what no one tells you is that most of them were never used, just maintained, emptied, cleaned, waiting for the story to end badly enough to be needed. Some historians call that optimism, others call it denial. You think this place understands both. You open your eyes. The person beside you is gone, but the imprint remains. So, does yours you rise? The sky is beginning to change color slowly, like it's thinking about trying on morning but hasn't committed. You step beyond the frame of the structure, and there it is. A fountain in the middle of an empty square. Its water flows upward, not down. Drops rising in defiance of gravity, then vanishing before they reach the sky. A plaque reads, "Memory has its own direction." You dip your hand into the stream. It's warm, not wet. The sensation is hard to describe, like touching the middle of a thought. And you suddenly remember something, not a moment, not a name, just a feeling. The one you had when you realized you didn't need to be anywhere else. You leave the square. The city doesn't wave goodbye, but it remembers you walking away, and in this place that's enough. The streets grow quieter now, not silent, not abandoned, just settled. Like the city has finished telling you its loudest stories and now wants to share the softer ones. You feel it in the way the shadows stretch a little longer, in how the lamplight seems to dim with empathy rather than age. You follow a narrow lane paved with mismatched tiles, some smooth, some chipped, some etched with words that flicker in and out of readability. They form sentences that rearrange themselves just as you finish reading. We're all made of leaving. Some of us never left. All roads are round if you never stop. The path leads to a small square. At its center stands a building. That doesn't seem to belong in any time period. Too modern for the past, too ruined for the future. Its sign reads, "Archive of Unfinished Goodbyes." You hesitate, then enter. The air inside is dry, not stale, preserved. Like a museum that knows it's a tomb but refuses to be sad about it. Rows upon rows of shelves, no books, just recorders, old ones, reel-to-reel, cassette decks, answering machines, wax cylinders, even one of those toy microphones kids use to sing alone in their rooms. Each one labeled in tiny, careful handwriting, and every label begins the same way. What I never said to you. Walk down the aisles, you hear snippets. Fragments of voices caught in magnetic memory. I meant to tell you I wasn't okay. I kept the ticket from the night we met. You were the only one who understood that silence doesn't mean nothing. No two are the same, but all of them sound familiar, because everyone, everywhere, at some point becomes a ghost in someone else's message. At the far end of the room, a table waits. On it, a recorder of your own. It's already running. You sit. You say nothing for a long time, then you whisper. I didn't know how to say goodbye, so I stayed quietly, inside the story. The tape clicks softly. That's enough, you rewind it. Leave it on the table, it will join the others. You exit into another hallway. This one is lined with photographs. None of them have faces, just gestures. A hand raised halfway to a wave. A door, left ajar. A suitcase sitting on a porch. A chair still warm. Underneath one photo, a caption reads, "They meant to return, but meaning isn't the same as motion." You keep walking. The hall leads outside again. Now the city feels different. Not changed, just acknowledged, as though it knows you've been listening. You reach a crossroads where 4 identical roads stretch out in all directions. In the middle of the intersection stands a signpost with one word etched on each arm. When, almost. After yunks before you choose after. The road slopes downward gently, as if tired of resisting. You pass a row of mailboxes. Each one open, empty. Inside them you find postcards. Each card says, "We thought you might still be here." They're unsigned. You take one and write on the back, "I am." You slip it back into the box. The wind picks up, collecting it like a memory on schedule. You continue walking, you begin to notice clocks again, but now they all read the same time. 3, not morning, not evening, just 6:03. You think of something small and strange. In 1984, a Soviet cosmonaut aboard Salyut 7 reported that for 5 minutes, he saw a blinding orange light outside his capsule and felt as if the station had been visited. The official report said it was solar flare reflection, but the cosmonaut said no. He said it felt like someone was saying goodbye. Historians don't agree on the truth. They rarely do. But maybe some goodbyes don't need witnesses, only echoes. And maybe that's all this city is, a perfectly designed echo, built to hold everything we never said. You reach a small bench near a fountain that isn't flowing anymore. You sit, you don't need it to work. You just needed it to be there, and it is. You sit on the bench for a while, long enough to forget why you sat down, long enough for the silence to begin layering itself around you like dust in a sealed room. But it's not loneliness, it's gentleness, a stillness that asks nothing of you except presence. Eventually you rise. The path ahead forks again, of course it does. One way leads into a tunnel, unlit. The other toward a long glass building, glowing faintly like a memory trying to stay alive. You choose the light. As you approach, the building resolves into focus. It's a museum, or a greenhouse, or both, etched above the door. Exhibit of all things that almost happened. You pause, then step inside. There's no reception desk, no security guard, no maps. Just you and the weight of might-have-beens. The first room is full of display cases. Each holds a single object, a key to a door that was never installed, a letter half written, never sent, a pair of shoes bought for a trip that never took place, a candle that was never lit during the power outage that never happened because someone changed their mind. Beneath each object, a label. Donated by you. You smile. It's not warm, not sad. Something in between, like the feeling of returning to a place that never knew you left. The next room is darker. Screens line the walls playing grainy videos. Each one shows a scene from your life, but not the way it unfolded. In one, you speak the truth you swallowed. In another, you stay instead of leave. In a third, you never meet someone, and still, somehow your laugh sounds the same. The loops are short, a few seconds each, but they linger, like the scent of a stranger's perfume caught in your jacket hours later. There's a bench here. You sit, and that's when you hear it. Footsteps, light, measured, familiar in the way a melody you've never heard can still make you cry. Someone sits beside you. You don't look. They say, "Do you think it would have mattered?" You reply, "What?" They gesture toward the screens. If things had gone differently, if you'd picked a different road, you take a breath, exhale. "I don't know," you say. "Maybe, but I think I like who I've become, even if I didn't plan it." They nod. That's the secret, isn't it? Becoming someone real without the map ever being right. You turn. They're already gone. Just a coat on the bench. Still. Warm. You keep walking. The next room has no walls, only frames, dozens of them suspended in air. Each one outlines a moment you almost lived, a conversation that nearly began, a kindness you nearly offered, a truth you nearly faced. You walk among them, careful not to disturb the space they hold. You feel the ache of all the versions of you that never made it out of maybe. And yet somehow they don't feel like failures. They feel like roots. Like all the paths you didn't take still fed the one you did. You think of something strange, obscure. In a village in northern Italy, there's an old clock tower with no hands. It's been that way for over 100 years. The locals say it stopped ticking when the town made peace with not needing to measure time anymore. No wars, no schedules, no regrets, just presence. Historians barely note its existence, but poets love it. They say it's the only place where nothing has ever happened because everything already has. You leave the room of frames. At the exit, a sign waits. Not painted, not carved, just written in fog on glass. This city has never asked you to become someone else, only to notice who you are in when no one is watching. You step outside. The city greets you again, quiet, open, familiar. You don't know how long you've been here, but you know this. You're not lost, you're not found. You're witnessed, and maybe for the first time, that's enough. You don't remember walking. You don't remember deciding to move. You just notice that you've arrived somewhere new. A wide stone plaza stretches out before you, open and windswept, with no buildings tall enough to cast a shadow. Just sky above and cobblestones below, each one carved with a different word. Some in languages you don't recognize, some in handwriting so small it looks like thread. At the center of the plaza is a statue. It's subtle, life-sized. A person sitting on a bench, elbows on knees, eyes downcast. The kind of sculpture you'd walk past if it weren't so uncannily familiar. The figure wears your coat, your shoes. Their posture mimics yours exactly. The way you sit when you think no one's looking. There's a plaque beneath it, dedicated to the version of you who stayed quiet long enough to hear everything. You sit on the bench beside the statue, not across, not behind, beside. You don't speak, neither does it. But the silence between you feels less like absence and more like companionship. Wind blows across the plaza, and the words in the cobblestones begin to shift. They move like ink in water, rearranging themselves into sentences, brief and blinking. This isn't your ending. You weren't wrong to wait. Some questions don't want answers. They want attention. You smile almost, and then you notice something at the edge of the plaza, a mirror, freestanding, tall, framed in copper that's begun to oxidize into soft green. You approach. But the mirror doesn't show your reflection. Instead, it shows the city just behind you, but not as it is now, as it was, or might have been. You see moments flicker across the glass. A stranger offering you directions you never asked for. A key falling from a rooftop. A note tucked into the spine of a book you never opened. Each one glows briefly, then fades. You reach out to touch the glass, and suddenly the mirror fills with faces. People you've known, people you've lost, people you never got the chance to meet but somehow still miss. They look at you, not accusing, not pleading, just present. And in that moment, you feel it. You are not the only one who wandered here. This place isn't built from your mind. It's built from everyone's unfinished thoughts, their quiet regrets, their accidental poetry. This city is made of the things we leave behind but never truly lose. You let your hand fall back to your side. Behind you, the statue is gone. Not vanished. Just not here right now. You step past the mirror and toward a narrow street you hadn't noticed before. The buildings here are small, warm-colored, modest. A row of homes with curtains drawn and chimneys that puff smoke shaped like music notes. You hear humming. Someone's making dinner. Someone's watering plants. Someone's humming a song no one wrote down, but everyone knows. You pass one house, with a porch light flickering gently. You pause. A doormat reads, "You were always welcome, you just didn't knock." You knock. The door doesn't open, but a voice from inside says, "We're setting an extra place, in case you change your mind." You nod even though they can't see you, then turn away. The road winds again. You look up and the stars have returned, but they're not random tonight. They've arranged themselves into constellations of memory. You see the shape of a bench, a key, a mirror, a city. The stars blink once, slowly, like they're saying, "You've been watching, we noticed." And then you realize the city isn't here to trap you. It's here to teach you how to stay without losing yourself. You walk toward the edge of the neighborhood. A lamplight flickers, as if bowing slightly, and the wind carries a voice. So quiet. It might have been your own thought. "Thank you for listening." You whisper back, "Thank you for existing," and the city hears you. You move through the city now like someone who belongs, not as a resident exactly, but as someone the city has grown used to. The cobblestones don't shift beneath you anymore. The lights don't flicker as you pass. Instead, everything holds its breath, not out of fear but reverence. You turn down a street you've never seen before and instantly know it's the one you've been headed toward all along. It's lined with doors, just doors. No walls, no buildings, Just frames suspended upright, each with its own doorknob, texture, weight. They stand in two perfect rows, facing each other, casting shadows that stretch toward the center of the street and then fold in on themselves. There's no signage, no instructions, but you understand. These doors aren't meant to be opened. They're meant to be stood in front of. You try the first one. The moment your hand touches the handle, your head fills with a memory, one you never lived, but recognized like a dream retold too many times to be false. You're in a cafe somewhere rainy. Someone laughs at a joke you never made. The light through the window turns everything gold. And just before the memory dissolves, you feel happy in a way that feels like cheating. You step back. The feeling fades, like a dropped note on a quiet piano. You move to the next door. This time the moment is sad, but a clean sadness. A goodbye with closure. A plane ticket, a hug, a smile that says, "We'll be okay even if we don't see each other again." You realize each door is a possible version of your life. Not better, not worse, just different. Some you feel drawn to, others repel you. One door burns to the touch, one smells like childhood. One makes you cry before you know why. At the center of the avenue, one door is open, just slightly. You approach it slowly. It's an old wooden door, chipped at the corners with a brass handle and a crack running through the grain like a vein. Behind it you see nothing but soft light and the faint outline of a room filled with books and music. A single voice humming a lullaby. You reach for the door, and it swings open, not wider, but inward. You step through. You're in a room that feels like memory, not yours, not entirely. Books line the walls. Some spines have your name, some have your handwriting. Others are blank, but as you pass, the titles appear. Things you nearly believed. Moments you thought didn't matter. The time you chose. Kindness without being asked. There's a chair, a record player, a small lamp humming like an old friend. You sit, the record plays. Static, then a voice. Yours, reading something aloud. You are not unfinished, you are unfolding. You are not broken. You are in translation. You are not too late. You are exactly when you need to be. The voice fades, and you remember something real. A historical fact buried in a footnote. During World War II, a library in London was bombed to rubble. Most of the books were destroyed, but one section survived, the poetry aisle, sheltered by a single column that refused to fall. When asked about it years later, a librarian said, "Of course the poetry lived. It knew how to hide in the small spaces." And you think, maybe, you've been hiding too, not to disappear, but to endure. The light in the room dims, you rise, step back through the door. The avenue of doors is gone. In its place, a path, simple, quiet. It winds uphill through a grove of trees with leaves shaped like letters. As you pass beneath them, they flutter down. Some land in your hair, some at your feet. You look down. They spell one word, still. You keep walking. The hair is cooler now, not cold, just enough to remind you that the world exists beyond this place. But the city, this city, isn't fading, it's following, not like a shadow, like a memory that's chosen to keep you. You turn the corner, and the horizon opens. The path narrows now, almost shyly, as if it's unsure whether you still want to be led. The trees thin, their leaf letters gently drifting in the wind, spelling nothing now, just fragments, as if the city has run out of things to say, but still wants to keep you company. You walk until the ground flattens, and then there it is. The center, no signs announce it. No monuments define it. Just an open space where all streets seem to curve toward invisibly, the gravity of silence pulling gently at your steps. In the middle stands a clock. Tall, thin, elegant in the way old grief sometimes is. Its face is blank, no hands, no ticking, but still it hums. The base of the clock is inscribed with words you didn't expect. Nothing starts. Nothing ends. Everything simply continues through whoever notices. You sit on the edge of the platform it rests on. Let your legs dangle. Look out. The city unfolds around you like a map drawn from memory, blurry at the edges but vivid where it counts. You see the places you visited, the carousel that still spins, the library with its breathing books, the cafe where the dialogue was always improvised. The train station that never sent anyone anywhere, the fountain that flowed upward, the hallway of doors, now closed again. You see yourself too, tiny echoes of who you were at each stop, still sitting, walking, reaching. All of them still here, not haunting, not trapped, just present. And the city, it doesn't fade, it deepens, not with noise or light or spectacle, but with quiet certainty. You think about something unusual. In 1977, NASA launched the Voyager Golden Record into space, an audio time capsule of Earth's sounds, languages, and music, meant to represent humanity to any alien civilization that might one day find it. Among the greetings in 55 languages, there was a final inscription etched in English. To the makers of music, all worlds, all times. They didn't know who would hear it. They just knew someone might, and that was enough. You wonder if this city is like that. A message sent into the quiet, not to be understood, only felt. The clock hums again, louder now, or maybe your ears have adjusted. You rise, and you realize. There is no exit. There never was, because there's no leaving a city that exists in you now. It's not something you depart from. It's something you carry. You hear footsteps, soft, slow, familiar. You turn, but there's no one. Only the impression of someone who loved you once, or maybe still does. Only the suggestion of being seen. And then the clock speaks, not in words, not in sound, but in stillness. It says, "You may rest now. You've listened long enough. You've wandered with grace. You've remembered more than most. You take one last breath of this place. It smells like paper and dusk and that specific kind of sadness that doesn't hurt anymore. You sit down. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the story, at last, settle. The city folds itself around you, not like a trap, like a lullaby. And if anyone else should wander in someday, they'll find a bench in the center of the city. And someone, some version of you, still sitting there, smiling quietly, waiting for them to listen. Now, let your body relax. Let the lights inside your thoughts dim one by one. You are here, you are held, you are still, you are home.
Time Victorian, doctors prescribe petting cows. Thank you.